Many people start listening to metal when they're young. I started really getting into it when I was 14. I've met people who've gotten into it earlier than I did. But what comes from all this are a lot of obstacles and problems for young metal listeners. This is something that needs to be addressed because there are a lot of problems that are overlooked and can often be solved with a little effort. First problem, there's the long hair stigma. For some reason, a lot of people forget that their precious Beatles during the Abbey Road era had long hair themselves. And then the Jesus freaks who go crazy over metal listeners having long hair often forget that Jesus had long hair himself. Do you really think that if Jesus were to come back, he would want to hear people making fun of his hair? Well, it's just hair! You have to remember that some of these people who are criticizing the hair that you like aren't really pleasing to the eye themselves. Some of these are old women who look like Barbara Bush. And sometimes there are these old men who wish that they still had full-colored hair, or wish that they didn't cut their hair before they went into World War II. Or they're one of these middle-aged women who think that's not fashionable to have long hair once you hit 40, so you cut your hair to a weird style. They think it's edgy, but a lot of times these haircuts make them look like old women who are trying to look hip and young again. What I'm trying to say is to try to not take some of these people too seriously. Now, I'm not one to judge a person's hairstyle. I mean, if you like the way you look, then fine, I'm happy for you, but don't come after me, or I'm gonna come after you. Also, I find it to be a double standard. Are you trying to say to us metal men that only women are allowed to have long hair? Why can't we all live peacefully and in harmony and agree that we all have our own ideal looks? Kids, don't change your hairstyle just because some other people don't like it. If you like what you're doing, then know that for every one person who doesn't, there are 10 other people who do. But there are also the shirts and the mean looks that you get from wearing them. Your family might make fun of you at the gatherings for all the bands that are on your shirt. But I would also like to add that shirts might cause problems for listeners under 18 years of age. There are lots of stories about moms throwing shirts away. Hey mom, I just did all my school clothes shopping! That Cannibal Corpse shirt cost me $20! There's not a lot that you can do about moms being difficult with shirts. You could probably wash your own clothes and hide your good shirts in your closet. Maybe walk to the bus with your Adventure Time shirt on, and then when you get on the bus, reach into your backpack and change into your Deicide shirt. I think the ultimate thing is that you need to just let people know that these shirts aren't just shirts, they're you. Morbid Angel is who you are. If that means fighting tooth and nail to get people to understand that, or for you to keep your integrity, then so be it. Similarly, a young metal listener's albums might get confiscated. I'll tell you, there are some families where finding a copy of Suffocation's Pierce from Within may cause some stupid emotions. They might send their kids to therapy, or they'll send them to church to confess their sins. Or they'll go on rants about what kind of kid they're raising. And they'll do it in a way that makes them sound ridiculous. Well, in this case, you have to get creative. When hiding things, be sure to use hidden compartments. And if you have a safe, then use it. If you know of any other metal people nearby, maybe you can keep all of your albums at their house. An underground railroad for metal, if you will. But sometimes it's also hard to find stores that sell these albums. You can use the internet, because Relapse and Peaceville both have great online stores. In fact, some of these websites can allow you to mail cash if you're too young to own a credit card. But there are also mail catalogs if you subscribe to any, so you could just buy the albums via the mail. The journey to building your collection may be a little difficult, but trust me when I say it will be worth the effort. Oh, and this obstacle makes me laugh. Being told that it's just a phase. People who say this have obviously never been to a metal show in their life. You go to a Napalm Death show, and who do you see? Well, you expect to see a lot of people in their teens, okay, but you also see a lot of people in their 20s and 30s. Now, how long do you think that these 30s crowds have been into the music? Because chances are, this probably isn't their first time seeing Napalm Death. They probably saw them during the Harmony Corruption tour. But then you also see some people in their 40s and their 50s. And if you talk to the people in their 50s between the sets, they'll tell you about how they bought Wolverine Blues the day it came out, and how they got to see Voivod in 1989. At this point in the discussion, does this sound like a phase to you? Many people who are into metal are into it for a lot of years, sometimes for the rest of their lives. I mean, just look at Barney Greenway and tell him it's a phase. Saying that this music is just a phase is just like saying that there's a problem and you're having a lot of emotional issues and the music is just a byproduct of these issues. There are lots of happy people who are into the music. You just have to remember that mainstream media goes crazy about the latest pop artists, but you notice that these pop artists usually go away and decline in popularity after a year or so. I think that would be more worthy of saying that someone's taste is just a phase. Young metal listeners are also bombarded with ridiculous religious claims. Someone may claim you to be a Satanist or an atheist. Oh my god! Elvis is the devil's music! Black Sabbath is so horrible and awful and evil! Obviously, this is nothing new. But something a lot of people may find new is that there are a lot of Christian metal bands out there. Just show them Mortification, and they might scratch their heads for a bit, but maybe they'll walk away quietly. One of metal's biggest goals is individualism and personal freedom. This includes ideas about religion. Think, you have bands of all kinds of religious faiths. You have Christian bands, satanic bands, Odinist bands, atheist bands, and all kinds of other religions. Why not just look at it as getting different perspectives about the world and the universe? If you're open-minded, you can take these different lyrical interpretations and possibly come up with ideas of your own. The thing about music in general is that it gives you the freedom to do this. You see, Slayer gets a lot of flack for being a satanic band, but the fact of the matter is that Tom Araya is Catholic. Kerry King writes most of the anti-religious stuff for the band. All religions, period, have enslaved the masses with fear, violence, wars, discrimination, and a mile-long list of other problems. Let's be honest here. If the music you are listening to helps you realize what a scam a lot of it is, then maybe that can be considered a good thing. It will be difficult trying to convince the other person, but you need to just worry about yourself. If you want to question something, you should. You may be outcast if you're forced to go to church or be around religious people, but at least you won't be lying to yourself. If your music, books, movies, TV shows, and interaction with other human beings and ideas caused you to convert, then your religion wasn't strong enough to begin with. And then you'll get peers who don't like the vocals or what the music sounds like, so you have to deal with them making fun of you for it. You have to listen to these god-awful impersonations of metal singers from people who don't even listen to the metal. What's even worse is when you try to go out and do social things and they're playing pop music. It's like vampire repellent for metal people. Every time I go to the dentist and they play Madonna on the overhead speaker, it makes me wish the dentist would just rip all my teeth out so that way I could drown out the sounds of Madonna with my gargled bloody screams. You won't hear metal at most places, so you actively try to avoid the radio as much as you can and bring your music everywhere you go. At school dances, proms, functions, clubs, and other social events where they play music, you'll hear people say, "Oh, you can't dance to metal." But I guarantee you that if you start playing Overkill, I will be on that dance floor. Of course, I might only dance for a few minutes, and it might turn into moshing, but point is, I'll be on that dance floor. It will be a memorable experience even if you're the only person on that dance floor. Or if there are 2 or 3 of you. Something else that really sucks is when you want to date somebody who is into metal. When I find somebody I like, I want to be sure that she's into the same goals that I'm into. I've dedicated my life to the music, and metal is the path I've gone down. So she has to be into stage diving and moshing and crowd surfing, and having to hear George Fisher talk about firing up chainsaws on stage and not being freaked out. If you are hardcore into metal, then dating somebody who's hardcore into country music might cause a bit of problems. When she's walking down the aisle at the wedding, she's gonna want to play Garth Brooks or something, and you're gonna want to play Death's Story to Tell. And when your Satan spawn is born, she's gonna want to play some Alan Jackson or something, and you're gonna want to play Slayer while the baby's born. You see where this might cause problems. She's gonna want to play Billy Ray Cyrus when your kid's born, and your kid is gonna have all kinds of mental problems, and you're gonna end up resenting that person. Case in point, if you want to date somebody who's into metal, you might have to wait a while before finding that special someone. But when you do find that special someone, it's going to be real special, and you're going to treat them so good and so lovely and so well. At school, an institution of pain, you might be tempted to play an instrument for the mighty forces of the metal. But guess what? they only have jazz band. That's fine and dandy, but why not use the jazz influences of the drummer to play things in the style of Megadeth's first album, and maybe use the horn section to play the Egyptian elements of Niall's music, and let the big boys play the guitars and the bass. Da-na-na-na. Outside of school, you may not know that many people who can play that kind of music, because there's actually a lot of skill involved. You know, you have to learn how to double bass, perform flying fingers, alternate pick at mind-numbing speeds, play guitar while growling. I mean, not every musician can do all of that. But I can tell you that it's the greatest thing ever when you can just get one person to play with you. If you were to just have somebody play guitar right beside you, guitar a tasty riff, and you just D-beat and blast beat your way with them, then it's the greatest thing ever. To end this discussion, if this is something that you're really into, then keep being into it. You may be an outcast for a while, but that doesn't matter. If people think that they're superior to you as you are, then they're probably not worth hanging around to begin with. As time goes on, you're going to meet more people who are into metal. And you will also meet more musicians as well. By being an outcast, you're on the road to individualism and fine-tuning who you are. Believe me when I say that getting into metal could be one of the best things you could ever do. These obstacles I mentioned, a lot of them are only temporary. After a while, the rest won't even be an issue, and you can just laugh in anybody's face who tries to make it an issue. Ladies and gentlemen, grind on.